Before we dive in, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss content that helps you grow stronger and wiser. Let's get started. 1. Understand that their behavior is not about you. One of the most powerful lessons you can learn when dealing with toxic people is to realize that their behavior is not a reflection of you, but a projection of them. Toxic individuals often act out of their own insecurities, frustrations, and unresolved issues. They may try to bring others down to make themselves feel better, or they may lash out because they're overwhelmed by their own negative emotions. This understanding is key to maintaining your emotional strength and resilience. When you encounter a toxic person, whether it's a family member, a colleague, or even a stranger, remind yourself that their actions or words are more about their internal struggles than about anything you've done. For example, someone who constantly criticizes you may feel insecure about their own abilities. Someone who always seeks drama or chaos might feel a lack of control in their own life. Their toxic behavior is their way of coping with their own problems, even if it's unhealthy and harmful to others. Now, does this mean you should tolerate their behavior? Absolutely not. But understanding the root cause of their toxicity can help you avoid taking their actions personally. This shift in perspective allows you to detach emotionally from their negativity. It's like putting up a mental shield that says, "I see your negativity, but I'm not letting it affect me." Think of it this way. If someone handed you a cup of poison, would you drink it? Of course not. Similarly, when someone throws toxic words, actions, or attitudes your way, you have the power to reject them emotionally. Instead of internalizing their negativity, choose to see it for what it really is, a reflection of their own pain. One practical way to reinforce this mindset is to practice self-affirmation. Remind yourself of your own worth, strengths, and accomplishments. For example, if someone at work tries to undermine you, take a moment to reflect on your successes and the value you bring to your team. By focusing on your strengths, you can protect yourself from the emotional impact of their toxic behavior. Another strategy is to practice empathy from a distance. This doesn't mean you excuse or accept their actions, but rather that you recognize they're acting out of their own pain. This can help you feel less anger or frustration toward them and more control over your own emotions. At the end of the day, toxic people want a reaction. They thrive on getting under your skin, making you doubt yourself or pulling you into their chaos. By understanding that their behavior isn't about you, you take away their power. You stop giving them control over your emotions and your peace of mind. This is the first and perhaps most crucial step in dealing with toxic individuals, realizing that their toxicity is their issue, not yours. Number 2, set clear boundaries and stick to them. Boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They're bridges that define how others can respectfully connect with you. When dealing with toxic people, setting clear boundaries is not just important. It's essential for protecting your mental and emotional well-being. Toxic people often push limits, test your patience, and invade your personal space. Whether that's physical, emotional, or mental, the key to managing them effectively is to make your boundaries known and to enforce them firmly. Let's talk about what boundaries actually look like in real life. Imagine you have a coworker who constantly brings drama to your desk, unloading their complaints and frustrations onto you. While you might sympathize with their struggles, their negativity is draining your energy and distracting you from your work. Setting a boundary in this case might mean saying, "I understand you're going through a lot, but I need to focus on my tasks right now. Let's talk during lunch if you still need to share." Notice what just happened there. You acknowledged their feelings, but you didn't allow their negativity to derail your priorities. Boundaries aren't about being rude or cutting people off. They're about respecting yourself enough to protect your time, energy, and emotional space. But here's the hard truth. Toxic people don't like boundaries. They may try to guilt you, manipulate you, or even lash out when you enforce them. Why? Because boundaries disrupt the control they want to have over you. They force toxic individuals to confront their own behavior, and that can make them uncomfortable. This is why setting boundaries requires courage, consistency, and self-respect. One of the most effective ways to communicate your boundaries is to be firm but kind. You don't need to explain yourself excessively or justify your actions. A simple, assertive statement like, "I'm not comfortable with this," or "I need some time to myself," is enough. Toxic people thrive on emotional reactions. So the less emotion you show when setting your boundaries, the less likely they are to argue or push back. Let's take another example. Suppose you have a friend who constantly criticizes your choices. Maybe they make snide remarks about your career, your relationships, or even your appearance. Every time they do this, you feel a little smaller, a little more insecure. Setting a boundary here might sound like this: "I value our friendship, but I can't keep having conversations where I feel criticized or judged. If we're going to keep spending time together, I need us to have a more positive dynamic." That statement is powerful because it's honest, respectful, and non-negotiable. You've communicated your need for a healthier relationship, and you've made it clear that their toxic behavior won't be tolerated. If they care about the relationship, they'll respect the boundary. If they don't, it's a sign that they may not belong in your life. Here's the thing about boundaries. They're not just rules for others, they're promises to yourself. When you set a boundary, you're telling yourself, "I am worthy of respect, peace, and happiness." But those promises mean nothing if you don't follow through. Toxic people are skilled at testing limits, so if you let them cross a boundary once, they'll keep doing it. Enforcing boundaries takes practice, but it's one of the most empowering things you can do for yourself. And remember, boundaries are not selfish. They're an act of self-love. By setting boundaries, you're not only protecting your own well-being, but also creating a blueprint for healthier relationships. You're teaching others how you deserve to be treated. So, the next time a toxic person tries to invade your space, remind yourself of this truth. You are not obligated to sacrifice your peace for someone else's chaos. Number 3, master the art of emotional detachment. One of the most profound teachings of Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, is this: we suffer more in imagination than in reality. These words hold a timeless truth, especially when dealing with toxic people. Often, the power toxic individuals have over us comes not from their actions, but from our emotional reactions to them. The way they make us feel, angry, frustrated, hurt, ends up consuming us far more than the actual situation itself. To handle toxic people wisely, we must learn the art of emotional detachment. But what is emotional detachment? It does not mean indifference or apathy. It means refusing to let another person's chaos, negativity, or manipulation infiltrate your inner peace. It is about choosing to respond calmly instead of reacting impulsively. Seneca teaches us that our emotions, if left unchecked, can enslave us. He wrote, "He who is the slave to his emotions is not free." Toxic people know this, and they often provoke emotional reactions because it gives them control. But here's the truth. No one can control you unless you hand them the keys. Imagine a toxic coworker who constantly tries to undermine you in front of others. They throw passive-aggressive remarks your way, hoping to make you react and look unprofessional. In this moment, emotional detachment is your shield. Instead of letting anger take over or trying to argue, take a breath, observe their behavior, and respond with poise. A calm response, such as ignoring the bait or replying with grace, does more to disarm a toxic person than any heated argument ever could. Seneca believed that the key to emotional detachment lies in understanding what you can and cannot control. He taught, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Toxic people thrive on controlling the outside events, the things they say, the situations they create, the traps they set. But they can never control your mind unless you let them. Once you internalize this truth, their power over you diminishes. Here's a practical exercise inspired by Stoicism that you can use. When faced with a toxic person, ask yourself, what's in my control here? If someone is rude or insulting, you cannot control their words or actions, but you can control your response. You can choose whether to engage or walk away, whether to let their words wound you or roll off your back. By focusing on what you can control, your own thoughts and emotions, you reclaim your power. Another essential teaching from Seneca is the practice of premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. It's a mental exercise where you imagine potential challenges and prepare your mind to face them calmly. For example, if you know you'll be interacting with a toxic individual, visualize their behavior in advance. Picture them saying something rude or creating drama. Then, visualize yourself responding with calmness and strength. This mental rehearsal helps you stay composed when the real situation arises. Seneca also reminds us of the importance of maintaining perspective. He wrote, "How much better to heal than to seek revenge from injury." Toxic people want to drag you into their storm, to pull you down to their level of bitterness or chaos. When you detach emotionally, you refuse to give them that satisfaction. You stay rooted in your own values, focused on what truly matters, and free from their influence. One final piece of wisdom from Seneca. What need is there to weep over parts of life? The whole of it calls for tears. This reminder is not meant to discourage, but to liberate. It's a call to embrace the fact that life will always present challenges, including toxic people. Instead of resisting or resenting their presence, use them as opportunities to strengthen your emotional discipline. Each interaction with a toxic person is a chance to practice the stoic virtues of patience, wisdom, and self-control. By mastering emotional detachment, you're not just defending yourself against toxic people. You're building a fortress of inner peace that no external force can penetrate. Toxic people lose their power when they realize you are no longer a slave to your emotions, and in this, as Seneca might say, lies true freedom. Number 4. Respond with reason, not emotion. Seneca once said, "If a man knows not to which port he sails, no wind is favorable." This is a profound lesson in staying anchored to reason and purpose, especially when faced with the storms that toxic people bring into our lives. Toxic individuals thrive on chaos and emotional responses. They aim to provoke anger, frustration, or sadness because it allows them to manipulate and control the situation. The Stoic way of handling this, as Seneca would teach, is to respond with reason instead of emotion. When someone insults you or tries to drag you into their negativity, your immediate instinct might be to react emotionally. Perhaps you feel the urge to defend yourself, retaliate, or let your anger out. But remember this: reacting emotionally is giving away your power. It's like handing them the steering wheel to your inner peace. Seneca reminds us, the greatest remedy for anger is delay. Pause, breathe, allow the emotional wave to pass before you respond. This pause creates the space for reason to guide your actions, rather than letting emotions take the lead. Let's take an example. Imagine a toxic person accusing you of something untrue in front of others. They might say, "You're always late because you're irresponsible." At that moment, your emotions may scream at you to defend yourself, to shout back, to prove them wrong. But responding with reason instead of emotion looks different. Instead of shouting, you might calmly reply, "I appreciate your concern, but I have always met my deadlines. Let's discuss any concerns privately." This response does 3 things. It disarms the toxic person, protects your dignity, and keeps you in control of the situation. Seneca teaches us that we are not responsible for the actions of others, only for how we choose to respond. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." Toxic people are often poor in this sense. They crave control, attention, or validation, which they try to extract through negativity. But their behavior doesn't have to dictate yours. Responding with reason means refusing to be drawn into their hunger for drama. Instead, you act in alignment with your values. Another tool that can help you respond rationally is to ask yourself this simple Stoic question: will this matter tomorrow? Will it matter a week, a year, or 5 years from now? Most of the time, the answer is no. Toxic people often create small fires of drama that burn brightly in the moment, but fade into irrelevance soon after. By keeping this perspective, you can choose responses that align with long-term peace, rather than short-term emotional satisfaction. Seneca also believed in the power of understanding the human condition. He taught, "Man is affected not by events, but by the view he takes of them." Toxic people are human too, flawed just like everyone else. Responding with reason means stepping back and recognizing this truth. Perhaps their behavior stems from insecurity, fear, or their own unresolved pain. While this doesn't excuse their actions, it allows you to empathize without engaging. You can acknowledge their humanity while refusing to let their toxicity affect your mental state. To practice this, imagine you're standing in front of a roaring fire. If you throw wood into it, your emotional reactions, it will burn brighter and hotter. But if you refuse to fuel it, the fire will eventually die down. Toxic people are the same. The less attention, drama, or emotional energy you feed them, the weaker their power becomes. Finally, responding with reason is a reflection of your own growth. It shows that you value your inner peace over momentary arguments. As Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself." Toxic people, as challenging as they may be, give you the opportunity to prove your strength. Every time you respond with reason, you reinforce your ability to stay grounded and unshaken. By choosing reason over emotion, you take back control of your life. Toxic people thrive on emotional chaos, but they cannot survive in the presence of calm, rational clarity. As Seneca's teachings remind us, true strength lies in mastering yourself, not in conquering others. Number 5, don't engage in their drama. Seneca wisely said, "It is not the actions of others which disturb us, but our own judgments about them." Toxic people thrive on drama. They create chaos, stir up emotions, and try to pull others into their whirlwind of negativity. They seek to provoke, to bait, and to consume your energy. And often, they succeed not because they are powerful, but because we unknowingly give them what they want, our attention. The key to overcoming their influence is simple but profound. Refuse to engage in their drama. Toxic people are like emotional parasites. They feed on reactions, anger, frustration, defensiveness, or even sympathy. Every time you engage, even with good intentions, you give them fuel. Think of a flame. If you keep adding logs to the fire, it will continue to burn. But if you stop feeding it, it will slowly extinguish itself. Your attention is that log. Drama can't survive without an audience, and toxic people lose their power when you step away. Let me share a scenario. Imagine a co-worker constantly complains about their life and brings up petty grievances, trying to get you to join in their negativity. They say things like, "Don't you think our boss is a complete idiot?" Or, "Did you hear what so-and-so said about you?" They want you to agree, to fuel the gossip, or to react emotionally. Instead of engaging, follow Seneca's advice. Silence is a lesson in itself. By refusing to validate their complaints or gossip, you send a clear message. I'm not here to participate in this negativity. But what happens when the drama is aimed directly at you? Toxic people may insult you, blame you, or even try to manipulate you into reacting. In these moments, Seneca reminds us of the virtue of composure. He said, "A sword never kills anybody. It is a tool in the killer's hand. Their words are like a sword, but they can only hurt you if you allow them to pierce your heart. When you disengage and refuse to react, you neutralize their weapon." One of the best ways to avoid engaging is to practice emotional neutrality. Picture yourself as a stone in a river. The water, their drama, flows around you, but it cannot move or change you. When they throw negativity your way, instead of taking it personally, observe it from a distance. Ask yourself, what do they want from me in this moment? What reaction are they hoping for? Once you understand that their goal is to provoke, you can consciously choose not to give them the satisfaction. This doesn't mean you avoid all confrontation. There are times when it's necessary to address toxic behavior, but even then, do so without falling into their emotional trap. For example, if someone accuses you unfairly, instead of arguing back or becoming defensive, respond calmly with facts. I don't believe that's accurate. Here's what happened. Toxic people often rely on exaggeration or emotional outbursts to dominate a conversation, and when you refuse to match their intensity, their efforts fall flat. Seneca also reminds us that drama is fleeting. He wrote, "Time heals what reason cannot." What feels like an emotional storm in the moment often passes quickly when you don't engage. A toxic person may lash out, but when they see that their actions don't affect you, they're forced to face their own behavior. Without your participation, their drama begins to lose its energy, its focus, and its purpose. Another important part of avoiding drama is knowing when to walk away. Toxic people may try harder when they see you aren't reacting. They'll escalate, provoke, or try to make you feel guilty. Walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. As Seneca said, withdraw into yourself as far as you can. Protect your peace by removing yourself from situations that don't serve you. Finally, avoiding drama doesn't mean becoming cold or indifferent. It means prioritizing your emotional health over someone else's chaos. You can still be kind, compassionate, and understanding, but from a distance. As Seneca taught, true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future. Not to amuse ourselves with either hopes or fears, but to rest satisfied with what we have. When you refuse to engage in drama, you reclaim the present moment and your own happiness. So, the next time someone tries to pull you into their chaos, remember, you hold the power to say no. By staying calm, detached and composed, you not only protect your peace, but you also show others that their negativity has no place in your life. That is how you rise above the noise, as Seneca would say, with dignity and grace. Number 6, practice the power of silence. Silence is one of the most underrated and powerful tools we have, especially when dealing with toxic people. Toxic individuals often seek to provoke reactions, whether through insults, gossip, manipulation, or even outright hostility. They thrive on arguments, debates, and emotional responses. But as the old saying goes, silence speaks louder than words. By choosing silence, you deny them the energy they need to continue their negativity, and instead, you maintain control over the situation and yourself. Seneca wrote, "Let silence be your goal. It is a sign of a well-ordered mind to remain calm amidst chaos." When you choose not to respond, you send a message that their behavior has no effect on you. This frustrates toxic people because they rely on your participation to fuel their behavior. Silence, then, becomes your greatest defense. It is not weakness, it is wisdom in action. Imagine you're in an argument with a toxic co-worker or family member. They're raising their voice, accusing you, or trying to provoke you with inflammatory remarks. What do they want? They want you to match their energy. They want you to fight back, to get angry, to defend yourself in a way that creates more drama. But when you stay silent, when you refuse to give them what they want, you remain in control of the situation. Your silence diffuses the tension and takes the wind out of their sails. But silence isn't just about what you don't say. It's about what you choose to say instead. When you speak less, your words carry more weight. Think of how powerful it is to respond with a calm, measured sentence when someone expects you to explode. For example, if someone says, "You never do anything right," and you respond with silence, followed by, "I'd like to discuss this when we're both calmer," you've disarmed them, you've shown that you're in control of your emotions, and you've refused to let them drag you into their storm. Silence also gives you something that toxic people hate: time. When you pause instead of reacting immediately, you give yourself time to think, reflect, and decide how you want to respond. Toxic people often push for instant reactions because they know emotional responses are easier to manipulate. But when you take a moment of silence to breathe and think, you regain your power. You're no longer reacting impulsively. You're responding intentionally. Seneca teaches us that the way we interpret events determines our peace of mind. He said, "Things do not touch the soul. It is your judgment that touches the soul." Silence creates space for reflection. Instead of letting someone's words or actions invade your mind, silence allows you to step back, observe the situation objectively, and decide how much power you want to give them. Often, you'll find that their words have no real power unless you let them. One practical way to practice the power of silence is to embrace the pause. When someone says or does something toxic, don't respond right away. Count to 5, take a deep breath, and let the initial wave of emotion pass. This simple pause can make the difference between reacting emotionally and responding rationally. Over time, this practice trains your mind to stay calm and composed, no matter the provocation. Another benefit of silence is that it allows toxic people to reveal themselves. When you don't argue or defend yourself, they often keep talking, exposing their true intentions or flaws. It's like giving them enough rope to tie themselves up. Their behavior speaks louder than anything you could say in response. And when others witness this, they'll often see the toxic person for who they truly are, without you needing to prove a thing. Finally, silence is not just a tactic. It's a mindset. It's a way of telling yourself, I don't need to fight every battle. I don't need to prove myself to anyone. This kind of inner peace comes from valuing your time, energy, and emotional well-being over the need to win an argument or defend yourself against baseless attacks. Seneca beautifully summarized this idea when he said, "Better to conquer yourself than to win 1,000 battles." When you choose silence over chaos, you're conquering your own impulses, your own ego, and your own need for validation. And in doing so, you emerge stronger, calmer, and more in control of your life. So the next time a toxic person tries to provoke you, remember this: silence is not weakness. It is your power. It is your refusal to be dragged into their negativity. It is your way of saying, without words, you have no control over me. And in that silence, you will find strength, clarity, and freedom. Number 7. limit your time and energy with toxic people. One of the most liberating realizations you can have is this: you do not owe anyone unlimited access to your time, energy, or attention. Toxic people are masters at draining all three. They have a way of making every interaction feel heavier, every conversation more exhausting, and every relationship more complicated. And unless you take control of how much access they have to your life, they will consume more of you than you're willing or able to give. As Seneca wisely said, nothing is ours except time. Toxic individuals have a way of taking up space in your life, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. They might bombard you with complaints, constant demands, or manipulative behavior. They may dominate your thoughts even when they're not around, leaving you feeling drained and preoccupied. That's why limiting your time and energy with them is not just an option, it's a necessity. Let's start with time. Time is your most valuable resource, and as Seneca reminds us, it is finite. He wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." When you spend excessive time with toxic people, you are, in essence, giving away precious moments of your life that could be spent on growth, joy, and fulfillment. You're wasting time trying to fix someone who doesn't want to change, or trying to tolerate someone who thrives on chaos. To take back control of your time, you need to be intentional about how much of it you give to toxic people. This might mean reducing unnecessary interactions, skipping social gatherings where they will dominate the energy, or politely but firmly declining their invitations. For example, if a toxic co-worker always invites you to lunch so they can vent about their problems, you can say, "I'm sorry, I have other plans," even if your only plan is to enjoy a peaceful lunch by yourself. You are not obligated to explain or justify your boundaries. Then there's energy. Toxic people have a way of siphoning emotional energy like a vacuum. Their negativity, manipulation, or constant need for attention can leave you feeling depleted, even if you've only spent a short time with them. To protect your energy, you need to set boundaries, not just with them, but with yourself. Ask yourself, how much of my energy am I willing to give to this person? And how much do I need to preserve for myself? One way to do this is by practicing the emotional budgeting technique. Imagine your energy is like a bank account. Every interaction you have throughout the day costs you something, whether it's emotional energy, mental focus, or physical stamina. Toxic people tend to withdraw far more than they deposit. By setting a limit on how much credit they can take, you prevent them from bankrupting your emotional reserves. For instance, let's say you have a toxic family member who always calls to complain or criticize. Instead of spending an hour on the phone, limit the call to 10 minutes. Be polite but firm. "I have a lot going on right now, so I only have a few minutes to talk." By setting a clear limit, you're signaling that while you care, you also value your own well-being. And if they don't respect that limit, it's a clear sign that further boundaries may be needed. Seneca offers us another piece of wisdom here. Associate with those who will make a better man of you. Welcome those whom you yourself can improve. The people you allow into your life should add value to it, not take it away. They should inspire you, challenge you in healthy ways, and support your growth. Toxic people do the opposite. They keep you stuck, emotionally exhausted, and doubting yourself. Limiting your time and energy with them creates space for healthier, more uplifting relationships. But what if the toxic person is someone you can't completely avoid, like a colleague, boss, or family member? In these cases, the key is to create emotional distance. You can interact with them when necessary, but keep your personal life, emotions, and vulnerabilities off limits. For example, if you have a toxic co-worker, you might keep conversations strictly professional and avoid engaging in gossip or personal discussions. Remember, limiting your time and energy with toxic people is not about being selfish. It's about being self-respecting. As Seneca said, "He who does not value his time will not value himself." By prioritizing your time and energy, you're sending a message to yourself and others that your peace and well-being come first. Finally, let me leave you with this thought. Imagine your life as a garden. Every person you allow into your life is like a seed planted in that garden. Toxic people are weeds. They take nutrients from the soil, block sunlight, and crowd out the flowers you're trying to grow. Limiting your time and energy with them is like pulling out the weeds so your garden can thrive. It's not cruel, it's necessary for your growth. Number 8, choose your battles wisely. Seneca once said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." This simple yet profound observation speaks to our tendency to waste energy on things that ultimately do not matter. When it comes to toxic people, one of the most important skills you can master is knowing which battles are worth fighting and which ones are better left alone. Not every insult, provocation, or argument deserves your attention. In fact, many of these battles are traps designed to pull you into unnecessary conflict. Toxic people often thrive on confrontation. They provoke, manipulate, or instigate arguments as a way to assert control or feed their egos. But not every conflict requires your response. Sometimes the wisest course of action is to step back and ask yourself, is this worth my time, energy, and peace of mind? More often than not, the answer will be no. Choosing your battles wisely begins with understanding what truly matters to you. What are your values? What are your priorities? If the situation doesn't align with your bigger purpose in life, why give it your energy? For example, if someone criticizes your career choices in an attempt to provoke you, ask yourself, does their opinion affect my success or happiness? Likely, it doesn't. Engaging in that argument would only waste your time and distract you from your goals. Walking away, on the other hand, keeps you focused and in control. Seneca teaches us that true strength lies in restraint, not aggression. He wrote, "It is a great thing to know the season for speech and the season for silence." Toxic people often want you to overreact. They want you to defend yourself endlessly or lash out in anger because it gives them power over your emotions. But when you choose to remain silent or disengage, you deny them that power. Your calmness is a reflection of your strength, not your weakness. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're in a heated discussion with a toxic co-worker who's accusing you of not pulling your weight on a project. You know the accusations are false, but they're trying to get a rise out of you in front of others. The instinctive reaction might be to argue, to prove them wrong, or to retaliate with accusations of your own. But stop and ask yourself, what is the goal here? Is this worth my energy? Instead of escalating the situation, You could calmly say, "Let's review the project details after this meeting." With that one statement, you've removed yourself from the argument, preserved your professionalism, and refused to let their toxic behavior derail you. Seneca reminds us that anger clouds judgment and leads us into battles we might later regret. He wrote, "How much better to heal than to seek revenge from injury." When someone insults or disrespects you, the natural response might be to retaliate. But think about what you truly gain from winning an argument with a toxic person. Often, the cost, your peace, energy, and focus, is far greater than the reward. Choosing your battles also means recognizing the difference between a fight worth having and one that's simply about ego. Ask yourself, will engaging in this conflict help me achieve my goals? Is this argument about defending my values or just about proving I'm right? Will this matter a week, a month, or a year from now? If the answer to these questions is no, then it's likely a battle best left unfought. Walking away is not surrender. It's wisdom. By refusing to engage, you preserve your energy for the fights that truly matter. The ones that align with your purpose, protect your boundaries, or contribute to your growth. However, this doesn't mean you should avoid all conflicts. There are times when it's important to stand your ground, especially when toxic behavior crosses a line or threatens your values. But even in these situations, how you approach the battle matters. Respond with facts, not emotions. Remain calm, composed, and focused on the issue at hand, rather than getting dragged into a spiral of personal attacks or escalating drama. Seneca also emphasized the importance of seeing the bigger picture. He wrote, "What difference does it make, after all, what your position in life is if you dislike it yourself?" When dealing with toxic people, it's easy to get caught up in small, petty battles that distract you from the larger purpose of your life. By choosing your battles wisely, you maintain clarity and focus on the things that truly matter: your goals, your growth, and your peace of mind. So, the next time someone tries to provoke you, take a moment to pause and reflect. Ask yourself if the battle is worth the cost. Remember, not every insult deserves a response. Not every provocation deserves a reaction. And not every fight is yours to fight. True wisdom, as Seneca teaches, is knowing when to engage and when to walk away. And in walking away, you're not giving up. You're choosing yourself. Number 9. Focus on your own growth, not their behavior. Seneca once wrote, "Throw aside the things that stand in the way of your pursuit of truth, and consider what truth demands of you." Toxic people can become obstacles in your life, not because they are inherently powerful, but because we often focus too much on their behavior. We analyze their actions, their words, and their intentions, hoping to understand or change them. But the truth is, the more energy you devote to trying to figure out a toxic person, the less energy you have for your own growth and fulfillment. The greatest antidote to their negativity is to redirect your focus inward, toward becoming the best version of yourself. Toxic people have a way of pulling you into their world. They want you to obsess over their manipulations, their criticism, their drama. It's a distraction that can take you away from your goals, your peace, and your purpose. Seneca reminds us that our true power lies not in changing others, but in changing ourselves. He wrote, "If you really want to escape the things that harass you, What you're needing is not to be in a different place, but to be a different person. This is the key to dealing with toxic people. Focus not on fixing them, but on improving yourself. Let's take an example. Imagine you're dealing with a toxic colleague who constantly undermines you at work. You could spend your days dwelling on their behavior, replaying their insults in your head and coming up with ways to get back at them. But what does that accomplish? All it does is keep you stuck in their negativity, making their toxicity the center of your life. Instead, what if you channeled that energy into sharpening your skills, improving your performance, and building your confidence? Suddenly, their behavior becomes irrelevant because your growth overshadows their negativity. Focusing on your own growth means asking yourself, what do I want for my life and how can I get there? Toxic people want to make you feel small, insecure, or stuck. But when you commit to your own development, whether it's through learning new skills, improving your health, or strengthening your mindset, you take back control of your life. Their influence begins to fade because your attention is no longer on them, it's on you. This shift in focus also protects your mental energy. Seneca wisely observed, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." Toxic people crave attention, drama, and control. They want to pull you into their games because it feeds their ego. But when you focus on your own growth, you stop feeding their need for validation. You take away their power because your life is no longer about them. Here's a practical way to implement this. Set goals that inspire you and work toward them relentlessly. For example, if a toxic person in your life is trying to tear down your confidence, set a goal to improve in an area where you feel empowered. Maybe you start working out to build physical strength, or take an online course to advance your career. Every time you take a step toward your goals, you reclaim energy that would have otherwise been wasted on them. Another way to focus on your growth is to cultivate a mindset of gratitude and abundance. Toxic people often operate from a place of scarcity. They see the world as a zero-sum game, where your success threatens theirs. Don't fall into that trap. Instead, focus on what you have and what you're building. Make a habit of reflecting on your accomplishments, no matter how small. Celebrate your progress and remind yourself that your worth isn't determined by someone else's opinion. Seneca also reminds us to be mindful of the company we keep. He wrote, "Associate with those who will make a better man of you." While you may not always be able to avoid toxic people entirely, you can choose to surround yourself with people who inspire and uplift you. Seek out mentors, friends and colleagues who encourage your growth and challenge you in positive ways. The more you fill your life with supportive relationships, the less room there is for toxicity. Finally, remember that focusing on your growth doesn't mean ignoring toxic behavior. It means refusing to let it control your narrative. Toxic people want to make themselves the center of your life, but your growth shifts the spotlight back to where it belongs, on you. As you grow stronger, more confident and more fulfilled, their negativity loses its grip on you. Seneca beautifully captured this idea when he said, "You will find no one willing to share out his money, but to how many does each of us hand out his life?" Don't hand your life over to toxic people. Don't let their behavior dictate your mood, your focus, or your direction. Instead, use their presence as a reminder to invest in yourself. Every moment you spend on your growth is a moment you take back from them. So, ask yourself, what can I do today to move closer to the person I? Number 10. Learn the power of letting go. There comes a point in life when holding on to toxic people becomes more harmful than the discomfort of letting them go. It's not an easy decision. It rarely is. Toxic relationships often come with emotional ties, history, loyalty, or even the hope that one day things will change. But the truth is, the longer you cling to people who drain your energy, manipulate your emotions, or disrespect your boundaries, the more you lose sight of your potential. Letting go isn't about giving up. It's about making room for peace, growth, and freedom. Think of your life as a garden. Every relationship you nurture is like a seed you plant, water, and care for. Toxic people, however, are like weeds. They consume the nutrients in the soil, block sunlight from the flowers, and spread until they take over. To let your garden thrive, you must do the hard but necessary work of pulling those weeds. Yes, it's effortful. Yes, it might leave behind temporary gaps. But in the end, it allows your garden, your life, to flourish. Letting go of toxic people begins with an honest assessment. Ask yourself, how does this person make me feel? Do I feel supported, respected, or uplifted by them? Or do I feel drained, belittled, or constantly on edge? What would my life look like without their influence? These are tough questions, but the answers can clarify what's holding you back. Often, we keep toxic people in our lives because of fear. Fear of confrontation, fear of loneliness, or fear of the unknown. But holding on to these relationships out of fear is like carrying a heavy weight up a mountain. It slows you down, saps your energy, and keeps you from reaching the summit. Letting go means dropping that weight so you can climb freely. It's also important to recognize that letting go doesn't always mean cutting someone out of your life completely. Sometimes it means emotionally detaching, accepting that they won't change, and choosing to no longer let their actions affect you. You can still interact with a toxic family member or co-worker, for example, but you stop giving them power over your emotions. You stop expecting them to act differently, and instead focus on maintaining your peace, regardless of their behavior. For those relationships that do need to end, closure doesn't always come from the other person. In fact, toxic people rarely give you the validation or apology you may be seeking. Closure comes from within. It's a decision to prioritize your well-being over the relationship. You might never hear them say, "I was wrong," or "I'm sorry," but you don't need their permission to walk away. Let me share an example. Imagine you've been friends with someone for years, but over time, you notice a pattern. Every time you share good news, they downplay it or criticize it. Every time you're vulnerable, they dismiss your feelings or use them against you. You've addressed the behavior, but it hasn't changed. Staying in that friendship out of loyalty to the past won't make the present any better. Letting go doesn't erase the good times you had. It simply acknowledges that the relationship has run its course and is no longer healthy for you. Letting go also involves forgiveness, not for the toxic person's sake, but for your own. Forgiveness doesn't mean excusing their behavior or welcoming them back into your life. It means releasing the anger, resentment, or pain they've caused so it no longer controls you. Holding on to grudges only keeps the toxic person alive in your mind long after they're gone. Forgiveness is about reclaiming your mental and emotional space for yourself. It's worth remembering that letting go isn't a one-time act. It's a process. Some days you might feel free and light. Other days the memories or emotions may resurface. That's okay. Healing is not linear. What matters is that you've made the decision to prioritize your own well-being and that you're moving forward step by step. One of the most liberating parts of letting go is discovering what it makes room for. When you release toxic people, you create space for healthier relationships, new opportunities, and personal growth. You gain clarity, energy, and focus that were once consumed by their negativity. You start to see what's possible when your life isn't weighed down by their influence. So, take a moment to reflect. Who in your life is draining your energy, limiting your growth, or making you doubt yourself? What would it feel like to let them go? It might be uncomfortable at first, but remember, growth rarely happens in comfort zones. Letting go isn't about abandonment. It's about alignment. Aligning your life with your values, your goals, and your peace. When you make that decision, you're not just letting go of a toxic person. You're stepping into a version of yourself that no longer tolerates anything less than what you deserve. And that is a powerful, transformative act of self-respect. Number 11. Build inner resilience through self-mastery. Toxic people have one thing in common. They try to affect your inner world. Whether through manipulation, criticism, or constant negativity, their actions are designed to pull you off balance, make you doubt yourself, and disrupt your peace. However, the strongest defense against toxic people isn't about changing them or even avoiding them entirely. It's about fortifying yourself. It's about mastering your emotions, strengthening your mindset, and building an inner resilience that makes you unshakable. Seneca wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his body or his emotions." Toxic people succeed in controlling others because they exploit emotional reactions. They provoke anger, guilt, or sadness to make you feel small or powerless. But what if you could develop the strength to remain calm, composed, and confident, no matter what they say or do? That's the essence of self-mastery. The ability to stay grounded and in control of yourself, even in the face of chaos. Building inner resilience starts with developing emotional awareness. Toxic people often know how to push your buttons, but the only way they can succeed is if you don't understand your own emotional triggers. Take time to reflect. What situations or comments tend to upset you the most? Why do they affect you so deeply? For example, if you notice that criticism about your work makes you defensive, ask yourself if it's tied to a deeper insecurity. By identifying your triggers, you take the first step toward gaining control over your emotions instead of letting toxic people manipulate them. Another important part of self-mastery is developing emotional discipline. Think of your emotions like wild horses. Without training, they can run wild and trample everything in their path. But with discipline, those same horses can carry you forward with power and grace. When dealing with toxic people, practice pausing before you react. Instead of immediately responding to an insult or provocation, Take a deep breath and ask yourself, what's the best way to handle this situation? A moment of calm reflection can prevent hours or even days of regret over an emotional reaction. Seneca also emphasized the power of self-reliance. He wrote, "A man is as unhappy as he has convinced himself he is." Toxic people often exploit feelings of dependency. They want you to feel like you need their approval, validation, or support. Building inner resilience means breaking free from these dependencies. It means finding your confidence and self-worth within yourself rather than relying on others. One way to do this is by setting personal goals and working toward them, not to prove anything to others, but to grow for your own sake. Each small success strengthens your belief in yourself and makes you less vulnerable to the opinions or manipulations of toxic people. Another pillar of inner resilience is cultivating mental toughness. Toxic people love to sow seeds of doubt. They'll question your decisions, your abilities, and your character. To combat this, remind yourself of your strengths and accomplishments. Create a mental or physical list of your victories, no matter how small. Every time a toxic person tries to bring you down, use this list as evidence that you are capable, strong, and resilient. You might even adopt a personal mantra such as, "I am in control of my emotions and I choose peace." Self-mastery also involves building a life that supports your inner strength. Toxic people become less influential when your life is filled with positive habits and supportive relationships. Develop routines that nurture your mind and body. Exercise, meditate, journal, or spend time in nature. Surround yourself with people who inspire and uplift you, and spend less time with those who drain you. The stronger your foundation, the harder it will be for anyone to shake you. Finally, inner resilience means embracing the Stoic principle of acceptance. Seneca wrote, "The mind that is anxious about future events is miserable." Toxic people often create drama or uncertainty to keep you anxious, to make you feel like you're always walking on eggshells. But what if you accepted that their behavior is outside of your control? What if you chose to focus instead on what you can control, your own actions, thoughts, and responses? Acceptance doesn't mean tolerating bad behavior. It means letting go of the need to fix or change others, and focusing instead on mastering yourself. Let's end with this thought. Resilience is not about being unaffected by toxic people. It's about being so grounded, so strong within yourself, that their negativity bounces off you. Toxic people will always exist, but when you build inner resilience, they lose their power over you. They become background noise while you move forward with clarity, confidence, and purpose. Master yourself, and you master the world around you. Number 12. Take back your power and live freely. Toxic people, for all their manipulation, negativity, and drama, only have as much power as you allow them to have. The final and most important lesson is this: it's time to take back your power. It's time to stop letting toxic people dictate your emotions, control your thoughts, and steal your peace. Life is too short, too precious, to spend it tied to the chaos they create. This is your life, and you deserve to live it freely. Seneca reminds us of this when he said, "It is not the external events that disturb us, but our judgments of them, and these we can control." Toxic people will always exist. They will gossip, manipulate, criticize, and try to drag you down. That's their nature. But your life doesn't have to revolve around them. You can choose how much space you give them, physically, mentally, and emotionally. And here's the truth. When you stop giving them your energy, they lose their grip on you. They shrink into the background where they belong. Taking back your power begins with reclaiming ownership of your life. Toxic people often make you feel small, like you don't have control over your circumstances. But you do. You have the power to set boundaries. You have the power to say no. You have the power to walk away. You have the power to choose yourself over their drama. When you realize this, it's like a light switches on. You see that their hold on you was never as strong as it seemed. Imagine yourself as the main character in your own story. Toxic people are not the villains you must defeat. They are merely distractions on your path. When you focus on your growth, your goals, and your happiness, they fade into insignificance. The best revenge, as they say, is not retaliation. It's living a life so full of peace, purpose, and joy that their negativity becomes irrelevant. Taking back your power also means releasing the emotional baggage toxic people leave behind. Let go of resentment, anger, and bitterness. As Seneca said, what madness it is to punish our current self for the actions of someone else. Holding on to those emotions only keeps their influence alive in your mind. Forgiveness, whether it's for them or for yourself, is not about letting them off the hook. It's about setting yourself free. It's about refusing to let their actions define your present or your future. At the end of the day, you must ask yourself, what kind of life do I want to live? Do you want to live a life where toxic people control your emotions, take up your time, and keep you stuck? Or do you want to live a life of freedom, where your energy is spent on the people and things that truly matter? The choice is yours. And here's the good news. The moment you decide to take back your power, you've already won. As we close, remember this. The purpose of dealing with toxic people isn't just to survive them. It's to thrive despite them. Each lesson we've covered in this journey, setting boundaries, mastering emotional detachment, letting go, and building resilience, has been about empowering you to live a better, freer, and more fulfilling life. Toxic people don't define you. Their chaos doesn't own you. Their negativity doesn't control you. Let me leave you with one final thought from Seneca. As is a tale, so is life. Not how long it is, but how good it is what matters. Make your life a good one. Surround yourself with people who uplift you. Invest in your growth and protect your peace fiercely. Walk away from anything and anyone that doesn't align with the person you're striving to become. This is the end of this lesson, but it's also a new beginning for you, a chance to take everything you've learned and apply it to your life. A chance to rise above toxicity and embrace the freedom, joy, and strength that have always been within you. Remember, this is your life and you hold the power. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Now go out there and live your best life, freely, boldly, and without limits.